Three, two, one. What's going on, everyone? It's Ash on Comics Live for another live stream. Hearing myself over the iPad, which means you guys can hear me. And I hope you're all having a good night. I had a little technical glitch right before the music ended, and that's why there was a pause, in case you were wondering. And in case you were wondering what the heck happened last week, or actually, well, I guess it was Thursday, YouTube decided to pull down the stream. That was the second time that they've done that. Hip hip hooray for YouTube and big tech. Don't really know why. They didn't actually send me an email this time. So I don't know what to say about that. That's really weird. So we're gonna yank your stream and just not even say anything about it. So hopefully you're good. I see some activity in the chat. Really happy to hear that. So let's see who was first tonight. It was Melissa. Good to see you, Melissa. Dane was in the house second. Gateway into Comics, my boy Chase. Real good internet friend of mine. I don't know what to call it. What do we call people nowadays? We make so many relationships online. Do we have like a term for that? But Chase is one of the good ones, man. I've been following. He used to, or he still does have a channel. I don't know. He has a busy life, so he hasn't really been maintaining it. But I used to really follow his channel regularly, and I like what he has to say. He's got a really good perspective of things, and that's how I got to meet him, and we've interacted and just maintained contact, in the past or throughout this time. And here we are. Good to see you, buddy. Let's see. Dane is in the house. Eric Breen says, "Tell us a story, Grandpa Ash." Well, go get your blankie. We're gonna have a story time here soon, so we're gonna get situated for bed. Let's see. FF2 says, "Rest in peace, Denny O'Neil." Amen to that statement. Denny was a comics legend, passed away at the age of 81. I don't really know all the details. I don't really dig into details like that because I don't know. It's I'm a very private person, um, which is really weird having a YouTube channel. But um, I don't. I like my private life to be mine, and so I feel it very weird when I dig into other people's private lives, even if they have some sort of celebrity status. I never understood the desire for people to get like those celebrity magazines like Us and People and what's the other one? In Touch. There's a bunch of these magazines that all they are gossip rags, and they have, the paparazzi going around taking pictures of celebs, and then you see the cover and the checkout line. You're like, oh, look, it's so-and-so is breaking up with so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I don't care. I mean, I feel bad on a human level that when relationships go sour, because I know what that's like. It can be a terrible, terrible thing. But I just never understood the desire for other people to be interested in what's going on in someone else's life, and just like, ooh, the scandal. Then that now they're cheating on him with this person, and I'm like, they're just celebrities. They're just people like you and me. Would you I don't know, would you want to be the center of attention on a magazine cover and people debating your private life in public? I guess some people would say, well, if you're a celebrity, you put yourself out there, it's like, well, maybe, but it's not even a case of me arguing whether they deserve it or not. It's just me, like, I don't have any interest in that. So that's just me. Denny O'Neil, like, that's why I didn't pay attention to much of the details, because I just don't have this desire to know the details. It's enough for me to know that a legend passed, and what he meant to the comics industry, what he probably meant to his family. When someone passes, it's a tragic thing, because either they leave lots of loved ones behind and they're missed, or they don't. And that's the even more sad, maybe, when you think about people who no one to care for them, and they just pass away. Pass away by themselves, just no one even cares. Anyways, enough on the downers, man. Anyways, rest in peace, Denny. I wish I knew more about you. I was a Marvel guy, not a DC guy, but I know about you from your reputation. Let's see. Dane makes a note that the music was coming on. Yeah, speaking of the music, man. So I went and that song that you hear at the beginning, which I think is kind of catchy. I'm kind of a fan of pop, what I call pop punk. I don't know if that's the official name of it, but that genre that came around in the early 90s or at least it became popular in the early 90s. It was around in the 80s, but where, like, I think Green Day was the first real band to popularize it. And then Blink-182, which is actually one of my favorite bands of all time. They're a San Diego band, and not just San Diego. I mean, they're East County, San Diego, where I'm at. They recorded their first album down the street from my house. I knew the studio. Like, I was like, wow. And I listened to them before they ever made it big, and then they made it big, and then I'd tell people I was Blink. They're like, oh, you like because they became known for being like a tween band. I was like my 20s and stuff, and they're like, oh, you like them? And I was like, well, I've liked them for 10 years, and now you guys just discovered them. But whatever. That's my kind of music. I like all kinds of music, to be honest. I don't want to say that's my kind of music, but it kind of speaks to me a little bit. Anyways, I got that music because I went and I was like, I gotta get something that's not gonna get me flagged for copyright infringement. So I went on and looked for royalty-free music, and I found this royalty-free music, and I play it, and I still get copyright claimed by this company that claims it. And it's like, you're gonna release music, call it royalty-free music, and then claim it's such bullshit. What we live in this world today. So I don't know what to do. Let's see. Gateway into Comics says, try and take us out this week, you two. We will fight. Well, I guess. I don't know how I'm going to fight the big tech giants. But that's all we can do is speak out. You know, a lot of us are in positions that are helpless. And, you know, there's just, what do you do? What do you do against the big tech media censoring everything, and you know, the fake news media that just lies off their ass. I mean, there's blatantly lying now. It used to be they like hid their lies real carefully. They would use truth to be like, look, the story's mostly true. I'm like, so the lies would be buried and twisted in there. But now it's just literally blatant lies. Like the other day, what was it? The day or two ago, CNN was filming inside the Chaz and talking about how it's like it's all peaceful here, da 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 da. Meanwhile, on the screen, as the news guys, you know, he's filming, talking to the camera, a security guard, presumably like a CNN security guard guy, like some hired security, has to like move in and like wrestle out this other protester who like basically jumped in front of the camera and started shouting a bunch of stuff and everything. And then they just lie. And then the other one was like a couple weeks ago when they got caught live before all the protests started, and it was and coronavirus was actually a real deal. They were out and like off the streets, and they were filming people like at the beach or somewhere. I can't remember where it was, like park or beach, and they were like, look, and everyone doesn't have a mask and blah blah blah, you know. And the guy, the news guy talking to the camera, of course, had a mask, and he's like, you know, they don't have a mask. He's like pointing it, and then this guy walks kind of into the frame, and he's got his cell phone, and he's filming the CNN crew. And then the news guy like points to the guy off camera, like, and he's like, oh, see this guy, and he's not wearing a mask or something. And then the guy who's filming him with his cell phone, he's like, yeah, just like your cameraman. And then you hear the news anchor kind of say under his breath, like, yeah, and like our cameraman, like, and they got exposed. And then later on, that guy's video got bought by someone, or it was posted on media so they could put side by side, and you could see what he was filming. And sure enough, the camera crew, none of the guys were wearing masks. It was all fake. But they just lie to your face. Anyways, my point about this is a lot of times you can feel helpless. Like, what can you do? You just gotta put your head down and try to get through it. And it's like, yeah, I get it, but you gotta at least speak out, right? I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I feel kind of silly saying it's one of my favorite of all time because I can't remember it exactly, but my memory is terrible. But the gist of the quote is basically, all that is needed for evil to succeed is for good men to stand and do nothing. It's something like that line. I might have messed up a couple of the words. All that is needed for evil to succeed is good men to stand by and do nothing. Paraphrased. And I heard that quote probably like 20 years ago, and it stuck with me ever since. And I'm like, that's true. We don't always have the ability to be like the superheroes in these comic books that we read. And, you know, we read these comics, and like Superman, he can go and he can affect change as one person. He can stop an entire nation of evildoers by himself. He's got the ability to save the galaxy, the universe even, sometimes. And depending, you know, these stories. And sometimes we wish, I wish I was in that position. I wish I could affect the change that the world needs like that. And that's why we have these stories, to live vicariously through it. But I think what happens is when people feel helpless and they can't do things, when they can't, well, I can't be that person. I'm just a normal Joe. I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to pay the bills, put food on the table, feed my kids. You know, I got responsibilities. I get it. But we got to at least speak out. That's one thing we can do. And I've gotten a lot of arguments with friends of mine. And they say, hey, Ash, you know, like, you know, what are you doing? Why are you always like spouting off like all the time? It's like, you're not actually doing anything, you know, why don't you, you know? And I was like, well, yes and no. I get what you're saying. Like, I'm not actually doing something and then immediately you're seeing change. But I'm speaking out. And the magic about speaking out is that it lets people who have their heads down and think that they can't do anything know that they're not alone. It's easy to live in the world and we can see all the madness going around us and how everyone jumps in. Like you turn on the TV or whatever and you see all the massive protests and you see thousands and thousands of people in the street doing all this stuff. And that's because we have herd mentality. We're joiners. We're just like a flock, a herd of cattle. And when one of them stampedes, the rest kind of follow. And I used to make a joke of that to, like, when I was a teenager. Me and my friends, we had this thing. We would just always, we're know-it-all teenagers. And we would just be like, people are cattle. That was our thing. People are cattle. Little did I know the whole people are sheep or sheeple thing would be a thing. But people are cattle. We used to say it like looking down our nose, as if we were all better. And now that I'm older and wiser, less arrogant, less of a know-it-all. Well, I guess maybe I'm still a know-it-all. But I realize that I'm the same way. We're all of that the same way. The only real difference is when you can become aware of it or not. And I notice a lot of times people want to do things. People want to make change. People want to be able to do something, but they feel alone. And they feel like, well, everyone else is against me, and I guess I'll just keep my mouth shut because I don't want to be drowned out or have some sort of negative circumstances affect me. And that's tough. But we feel stronger when we're united. When we see other people speaking out, it's easy to like join by their side and be like, wait a second, no. And then if then 10 people get together and they're holding hands and they're speaking out together, the people who still were, maybe their threshold wasn't met, they still were like, I'm not sure I really want to step out and do anything or put myself on the line, then maybe they reach out. And everyone has a different level of threshold, right? Not everyone can be the guy who just starts stuff on their own. Have you ever watched a standing ovation? This is another example, kind of the cattle thing. Standing ovations are a weird thing because it takes one guy or one person, female, it doesn't matter, male, female, one person to be the one that stands up and just starts clapping where everyone else is sitting down. Now, when you do that, you don't know if everyone's going to stand up with you and be like, yay, like cheer. They may all just sit there and look at you and be like, what are you doing, freako? Well, that's most of us. Most of us are that. We're just like, I'm not being the weirdo who stands up and starts clapping, but the only way a standing ovation happens is when one person does it. And if other people in the audience feel that way, but they just had a little bit, they're a little bit more shy or not self-confident or whatever reason, they didn't want to be the one to stand up and be the weirdo, then they don't. But as soon as the one person does it, it's like certain people will be, oh, okay, cool, I'll do it too now because he did it. And then so other people look and say, oh, other people are doing it, and then they start following, and then they're cheering, and it's just the standing ovation. Literally, then the whole room stands up, right? And it's weird to think about how, like, a moment ago, these people wouldn't have stood up. They would not. 99% probably of them, or at least 90% of them, probably wouldn't have stood up. It took someone else to do it first. And that's what speaking up is about. It's not about affecting massive change on a big scale directly. It's just about showing other people, hey, you're not alone, right? Just because you don't hear people, you hear this big loud voice, you hear these different groups out there on the streets and they're doing it, like, and it's like you just feel like I just got to keep my mouth shut, like I don't want to lose my job, I don't want this, like, well, those are real feelings. But if enough people started speaking out and saying, no, I don't feel this way, it's amazing the people that I meet. And it's amazing on Twitter. I've been getting more followers on Twitter in the past couple weeks than I have in forever. Like, and it's not me patting myself on the back by any means, but it's me speaking out against the nonsense that's happening, and people see that, and I just know it's other people going, oh, it's such a relief that someone else feels like I do. Like I don't have to feel alone. Anyways, I can go on forever on things like that, and I'm sorry. Hopefully that's something that gets you thinking. I think about these things all the time. I'm a very introspective person, very self-analytical. I'm constantly analyzing life and my existence in it, and just how people act. I'm a big fan of sociology. I remember going back in high school, taking a sociology class, and just opening my eyes, just like whoa, like, and I think it was an elective course for me. It was one of those things, and me being like a nerd, everyone else has taken. Well, I took some kind of easy courses too for electives, but a lot of people just try to like take like, oh, I'm gonna take the whatever arts and crafts or something, and I'm taking an intellectual study course in sociology. But it was fascinating. I learned so much, and to me, I was like, why is this an elective course? This is one of the most valuable classes I've ever taken, because it's a study of the human condition. It's like a study of how people, not just individually act, that's like psychology, but how we act in groups and how society shapes things. And I firmly believe that sociology was a course that we were required to take, and it was taught correctly, not by indoctrinators in our socialist state-run schools, that we wouldn't be in the situation we are today. We wouldn't have things like the Chaz, because those of us who are educated can just realize the nonsense that's here, but the people that are in it making it happen are baby-brained imbeciles that are still kind of at the mental level of like a preteen. Anyways, where am I going here? Breen and Dane are talking about how they're waiting for me. Then the music came on. Melissa says she's sick of YouTube censoring people. I agree, and there's really no way to talk about it to YouTube. There's no way to make our voices heard. Melissa says, Ash, you and Professor Geek are my favorite YouTubers. Well, that's very flattering. I'm happy. I am not a fan of Professor Geek, unfortunately, but he's a very intelligent guy, and I used to be a fan of Professor Geek until he made a video basically shouting at the screen saying people like me were dumbasses. I was like, why are you making this video? But I miss his old videos, his academic stuff, when he actually went and talked about writing and literature and character archetypes. I think he got off the rails, but he chased the popularity wagon. And I'm not upset if anyone else is a fan. I'm not trying to say don't be a fan of his. Like I said, I was a fan once too. I wish I could be a fan again. I wish he would go back to the thing that I loved about him. FF2 says, I heard Invincible is getting a live action adaptation. It could be releasing somewhere this year. If by somewhere do you mean the internet, it will be released on the internet. Netflix, as I understand, has Invincible. Denny O'Neil hired Frank Miller to do Daredevil. Well, there you go. Denny O'Neil is responsible for bringing us one of the greatest comic talents of all time. It's kind of like the guy who scouted Michael Jordan, right? That's a big deal. He doesn't get enough credit. Who's that scout that brought Michael Jordan? I don't know. Let's see. Gateway says, this world is backwards now more than ever. How do we move forward when things are happening? When these things are happening. Yes, Ash, that quote, I really feel so much from it. Yeah, too. I think a lot of people actually that read comics will resonate with that quote, because I think most of us that read comics subconsciously, whether we really kind of have thought about the reasons why, have similar reasons why we read comics. We gravitate towards this sense of justice and virtue and the idea of the hero's journey and characters who fight against wrong, who stand up and they don't stay quiet. They're heroes. The term hero means something. And I think it's human condition for us to not just value heroes, but to be in awe of them. And superheroes is just a way of taking that element even further. I mean, some of the biggest heroes of my generation and my experience are the stories, the harrowing stories of these guys when they were running up the stairs of the Twin Towers while people were running down. It's haunting. And these guys are heroes. They weren't wearing capes. They weren't they weren't changing the world. They were just trying to save one person. Just trying to make a difference, trying to do what someone needed to do. And not all of us have that in us. We would like to. And that's why we read these books, and we can imagine and hope and maybe have some effect on us, and it makes us better people. It makes us think about these values. And when we think about things like this and when we value them, it drives us to do them. These firefighters that I just talked about, the reason they did these things is because somehow their lives developed that they valued doing the right thing. They just could not stand by when something needed to be done and not do it, right? It's a far cry from what we see today around us. Just like the Chaz, like these protesters. These guys, they don't stand for anything, which is ironic because they're protesting. They're trying. No, they're just throwing a temper tantrum, right? If you have children or you have nieces, nephews, whatever, you understand a child throwing a tantrum is not standing for something. It's just them not getting their way. It's just them being upset at circumstances that they want changed, and they don't know how to get things changed because they don't have the power to change. So they just scream and throw fits and throw things. And if they're really violent tantrums, they break things. These aren't the people that are running up the stairs of the Twin Towers when everyone's running down. This is a different kind of society. So, yeah. Anyways, Eric says, now I'm hungry for steak. I'm always hungry for steak, man. Who's not? Ash is gaining sentience. The first thing my sociology professor said before even introducing himself was, I hate Ronald Reagan. Good times ensued, he says. I'll tell you what, man. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And while it wasn't to the level of extremities it is today, man, when Reagan took over in 1980, I was too young to really remember it. But now that I look at some of the historical stuff and things, it was kind of similar. Libs freaked out, and they tried to play some of the same bullshit games and oh my god, and just Reagan was Orange Man before Orange Man. I mean, Reagan wasn't orange, but you know what I mean. They had similar mantra, and we forget about this stuff, and it's just because baby-brained imbeciles always throw tantrums when they don't get their way. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let's see. Melissa says he does original EU book reading now. I'm not sure what that's about. Ryuk says, late for the convo, but early for the comics. Yeah, it's kind of like the previews, right, at the movie theater. There's going to be 15 minutes of trailers, movie trailer, so you can show up a few minutes late. You're not going to miss anything. But Ryuk, I got to say, if I do say so myself, you might want to go back and listen to the replay. Feel like I feel like I had something to say. I don't know if I did. You guys can tell me. Um, let's get into what's going on tonight. We got 2 comics. We have X-Men #3. This was inspired by a longtime viewer of the channel, Melissa, who requested, Ash, can we please get some 80s and 90s X-Men instead of all this crap you're reading? To which I said, but I already did read some 80s and 90s X-Men. But you know what? I like 80s and 90s. Let's do some more. And I came across this and I was like, oh yeah. This is a 3-issue story of Jim Lee at his best with Chris Claremont doing his fond farewell. And so I obliged. I was like, hey, I'm going to do this for Melissa's request. And it's been a fun read. I haven't read this story in 20 years. And while I freely admit it's not the greatest comic book story I've ever read, it's super competent and it's super fun. And it's everything that I kind of want in comics, right? I think sometimes we get lost. We get lost in comics, and I don't mean the YouTuber guys that do a good job over on their channel, Lost in Comics, that show up once in a while. But we get lost in our comics and thinking like they need to be the next great American novel, like, piece of literature. And it's like, no. I think of comics kind of like I think of a summer blockbuster popcorn flick, right? Now, I appreciate good cinema as much as the next person. I'm actually a bit of a film snob, surprise, surprise, right? But when I go to a popcorn flick, I want it to be wild and spectacular, right? I want my movies to be Star Wars, like every time. Those are my favorite films, the original Star Wars. That's what I want. As much as I can enjoy The Godfather, as much as I enjoy, super, hard-hitting drama, like one of the best movies I've ever seen is $1 Million Baby. That's hard to watch. I don't want movies to always be like that. I want Star Wars. Like, if I could get it all the time, I would. And I want comics to be like X-Men. I just want it to be big, fun, bombastic, and great characters and art and big adventures and heroism. I don't want necessarily the deep meaning of life. I don't want these artistic, I don't know, this pretentious nonsense. I just make fun comics. And X-Men this is a book that encapsulates what I love about comics and what got me into comics. So I'm hoping that you guys are liking it too. It seems to be pretty fun. Eric's like, let's all go to the snack bar. Let's all go to the snack bar. I'm True Skill says, what's up, man? What's up yourself? Good. Welcome to the chat. Christopher Barker says Godfather's overrated. Oh, come on now. It probably is a little bit overrated, but it's still a masterpiece film. Let's see. Eric says, pew, pew. I think that's a good key to get in to the comic. Let's get going. I need to have a drink. Hopefully you guys have a drink for the opening act. This is a double feature. Every Storytime live stream that I do is a double feature. First book is usually something I've read before, and is something that could be good or bad. Sometimes we read comics to make fun of them, and sometimes we read just because I want to share something that I love or revisit something, just have fun. I think it was the opening act at a concert. And then the second book is the main event, and we'll get to that. So let me get a drink. What do you guys have to drink? I got cherry 7-Up today. Tasty. Now, the usual disclaimer, I am not a professional voice actor. So if you do not hear professional voice acting, just remember that you're not paying for anything. and I'm not getting paid for anything. Please enjoy the show. Officially speaking, 50 miles high is where space begins. The boundary isn't that precise, of course. On a molecular level, Earth's atmosphere goes on for quite a ways. For all intents and purposes, though, this is considered to be as high as human beings can fly in anything less than a rocket. Stan Lee proudly presents Chris Claremont's final issue of X-Men, Fallout, by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. A restriction that evidently does not apply to the uncanny X-Men. I may hate Apocalypse for grafting these bionic wings in place of real ones that I was born with, but I have to admit, Storm, they are a piece of work. Without them, I could never soar so high, even with your winds to help. I am afraid, my friend, this may be as far as we go. Storm's reached her limit. She's focused her power to its utmost, but the air is too thin at this altitude to sustain even a ghost of wind. Her best is plenty good enough, Red. She's pulled this glider a fair pace higher than we expected. Should make your job that much easier. I hate this. I really hate this. Sto? I mean, flying's bad enough, but in space? And why does the stupid plane have to be transparent? Ford said it was to make us functionally invisible, both electronic and optical scanners. Why? That is why it is a glider. Yeah, I know, with no metal elements such as engines for Magneto to detect. You'd best pray the Indian's right, Iceman, me boyo, or we're as good as dead. We've a precious thin chance as it is saving the day. What with our teammates announcing that they've switched sides and joined with the X-Men's archenemy. Not to mention the great powers down below, bound and determined to take a mess and turn into a royal catastrophe. Not simply for us mutants, but for this whole sad, sorry planet. Plasma cannon approaching optimum firing point. You can't do this. Supposing you don't destroy Asteroid M, but simply knock it out of orbit. Anyone want to imagine the damage that Hunkle Rock will do when it hits ground? The firing trajectory, Colonel Fury, has been calculated to blast the target away from Earth and into deep space. And if they're wrong? You would rather we do nothing, Colonel? I don't see the sense of stampeding into a course of action that we may all regret. You're a soldier, Fury. I'd have thought you, of all people, would understand. What do you mean, Chief Anderson? This is a war, Ambassador Kamenev. And we either win it outright or yield ourselves and all humanity up to Magneto as virtuous slaves, allowing him to lord it over us like some ancient god on a Mount Olympus. Yes, people will suffer, and people may well die, as my countrymen here in Genosha have suffered and died at the hands of that mutant madman and his pet terrorists. But sometimes that's the price demanded of survival and freedom. My government's position precisely, and yours as well, Colonel Fury. In this, Moscow and Washington are in full agreement. No matter the cost, our heads of state are the makers of policy, Dr. Cooper. We are merely its executors, and our orders are plain. Directly, the plasma cannon achieves its firing coordinates. Asteroid M and all aboard are to be destroyed. That was a bit hard to read. Sorry about that. Who's talking? They're serious. They're scared, Miss Gray, in ways that we can't even conceive of, because even though we X-Men are the good guys, we're the ones that they are scared of. They look around. They see a world that's slipping more and more out of their control. Mutants, super beings, gods, aliens, a guy who sticks to walls at one extreme, a creature who eats plants at the other. Each one that comes into being, they feel, diminishes the rest of humanity. Ordinary Homo sapiens, that little bit more. The future they see, Gene, is one where they're destined to be perpetual victims, innocents caught between beings whose powers they barely comprehend and haven't a hope of matching, where they'll always be at our mercy. This way, they demonstrate that they mean business. They may never be able to put the genetic genie back in its bottle, but they're still determined to be its master, and thereby prove Magneto right. How's your Psylink with the professor? You sure it can't be tagged? Forge, I've been Charles Xavier's student since I was a child. We're telepathically bonded on levels that no one can touch. Cyclops and his team... Wait a second. This book was not ever designed for digital reading. We're telepathically bonded. I'm not apparently for digital reading. Start over. We're telepathically bonded on levels that no one can touch. The professor as well, but the situation is as bad as we feared. Cyclops and his team have wholeheartedly embraced Magneto's cause, and if we do not follow their lead, they will fight us as tenaciously and courageously as they would their deadliest foes. Be a moot point once that plasma cannon starts taking pot shots. Storm and Archangel are through the airlock. Everybody seal your helmets and charge your pressure suits. Coming up on Showtime, Red. I'm up to it, Forge. I have to be. There's too much at stake. What could they be thinking, using an energy weapon against the master of magnetism? All they'll do is make him mad. Mad, Gene. He may already be. Certainly consumed by the demons that have hounded him his whole life. God has granted this opportunity to end his misery once and for all. Amen to that, boss lady. Meanwhile, easily as far above the X-Men's heads as they are above the sleeping, night-shrouded world below. What are you doing, old man? Sleeping? Forgive me, Lord. Too easy an answer for too dangerous a man. He's your deadliest enemy. Why not use on him Moira McTaggart's procedure that bound his pupils to our side? Because, my dear Cortez, I do not want Charles Xavier turned. I want him broken. I want his heart to crack. I want to choke him with grief, as I did when I learned of how my old and dear friend had betrayed me. No! Will you not listen to even now? Charles had nothing to do with what happened to Magneto. It was me, acting on my own, trying to find a means to saving your soul. I have told you, woman, and will not do so again. You will speak when spoken to. And never on this subject, do you hear? You dare call yourself a human being? I was a baby, Dr. McTaggart, entrusted helpless to your charge. Yet you betrayed every code of honor and decency, even your own Hippocratic oath as a physician. to alter my genetic structure. Did it give you pleasure playing God? How you must have laughed, you and Xavier, programming me through what is the phrase, behavior modification, to fit your conception of the man I should be. Making every decision, every choice I've made since is a sham, making me little more than your puppet. Only fair turnabout using the same process on the X-Men, for their own good too. My ends justifying the means this time. Through them I shall bring peace to the globe. And from that peace, a golden age. Magneto? Cough. Let me help. Get away! I want nothing, cough. You have, cough, cough, to offer. Come, Lord, let me take you to your quarters. There my mutant power will restore you to health and vigor, as it has before, and will do so for as long as you have need. Thank you, Fabian. I am in your debt. No, Magneto, no. Do you not see? The effects of each healing session wear off more and more quickly and leave you more and more debilitated. And he knows it. It's not kindness Fabian Cortez is doing to you, Magneto. It's deadly harm. Pause. Sorry about that. I needed a drink. At roughly that moment, elsewhere in the huge asteroid, Cyclops' team of X-Men are assuming their new roles as Magneto's latest acolytes, as though born to them. Wahoo! Splash. Not too shabby, Sherry. Finest kind of Olympic-class cannonball. You like Gambit? I like that and more. Better watch it. I touch your bare hand with mine, I'll absorb your powers and psyche and all your memories. Maybe. Maybe not. Want to take the risk, little river rat? I... No! I'm sorry, Gambit. Well, now ain't that a sight? First time ever, I believe. I've seen a Cajun charmer thrown off balance. Who knows? There may be hope. What am I doing? Where? Who? No harm done, rogue. Come on back down. Something's wrong. She looks scared. Small wonder, Gambit. Double dose of those come hither heartbreaker eyes of yours, then I'll spook anyone. Give her time. Come to her senses. So will you. Now here's a development not on the program, Wolverine. Making a quietly surreptitious departure from the afternoon's festivities, and dressed for business too. Beast, my lad, I do believe you're the only one who's noticed. Question is, what to do about it? And while Hank McCoy, one of the X-Men's charter members, makes up his mind, aboard the X-Wing glider... Oh, good thing Disney owns Marvel, because I was saying that was a trademark infringement. Sorry. We've approached the apogee of our climb, folks. It's now or never. In your hands now, Genie. Do us proud. I sense an all clear from the professor, but the asteroid, it's so far. I don't know if I can even reach... Remember the danger room, Jean, just as we practiced. this is no different. Easy for you to say, no less than for you to do. Okay then, I hope everyone's strapped in tight, 'cause here we go. Summoning every iota of her psi power, Jean Grey hurls an awesome bolt of telekinetic force from across the sky. Think of it as the ultimate grappling hook, a strand of energy cast across the gulf of miles that must not only latch onto Asteroid M as it swings past along its orbital track, but then hold fast as Jean, using only the power of her thoughts and her innate strength of will, hauls the glider upward, hand over mental hand, knowing that the slightest slip, the most momentary weakness, will doom them all. By heaven, if only I could add my psychic strength to hers, but Magneto's inhibitors prevent my utilizing my own psychic powers. In this case, my dear child can depend on none but herself. There's something out there. So faint, though, I can barely see it. Company coming, Moira. Wolverine. Oh no, no. Transparent plane. Storm's idea. Forge is doing, I'll bet. Very sneaky. I like that. Coming to the rescue, are they? Can't say that's much of a surprise. Snick. Better make sure we give them the welcome they deserve. Be ready with the anchors, Forge, to secure us in place the instant we make contact with the surface. As good as done, Storm. But what about Jean? I'm fine, thank you. Utterly exhausted, but fine. To tell the truth, I didn't think I had such a capability in me. To tell the truth, dear friend, I never doubted it. Rest easy, lass. Your job's done. Don't worry about me, Banshee. I may be beat, but I'm a long way from beaten. The next step is yours, Tovarish Iceman. Stay behind me, you guys. Good as your pressure suits are, I'm generating a freeze effect of near absolute zero. Wouldn't do it all to get in the way. Over to you, big guy. Go to town. Your solid armor body should protect you from the cold. Anyone else, they'd freeze to the metal with touch. The cold also should have rendered the molecular structure of the walls brittle as clay. One good punch should do the trick. My specialty, and my pleasure. Colossus crashing through the wall. Your pardon, sir. We are here to see a man about a rescue. A pity. I was hoping for a pizza delivery, jokes Charles. Is Professor Xavier unwell, Storm? He is making a joke. Contrary to popular belief, Peter, the man is only human, complete with a sense of humor, such as it is. And too, Archangel, don't I get respect any more from anyone? Location secure, boss. Scanners clean. Internal alarms inert. So far, so good. I have to pause here for a second. I want to notice this line here at the top. Contrary to popular belief, the man is only human. I want to remind people that are stuck in nonsense land of modern Marvel in the 21st century where it's like muties and humans and they're not... No, mutants were human. They're just the next stage. They're just humans with an X gene. This whole idea that mutants are this supremacist, different race, and humans are... It's stupid. Anyways, sorry. I just got a little triggered there. But I liked it that they got to point these things out. Wait, what happened last? Okay, location secure. Okay. That, I fear, probably will not last. The psychic inhibitor field affects me throughout the asteroid. My own telepathy is of no use in finding the others. Same seems to apply to me, too. I have a sense of you, Professor, not them. So we find them the old-fashioned way. Not necessary, Forge. We've already found you. So tell me, Red, is my kiss as much fun as Wolverine's? Cyclops! Ramp. Because it may well be your last. If I may be so bold, that's hardly the way to influence people, much less make friends. Quad. Then revealing your true colors, Monsieur Bede? No matter. When this is finished, we'll make sure you see the light. Your way or nothing? That the ticket, Gambit? Cast aside the past like a snake shedding through its skin as though it was nothing? Blast the man. How can he be blocking my every shot? Blazes. He's deflecting them back at me. Shield stopping most. Arr! Last one clips my prosthetic leg. Only a surface strike, though. No major damage. Cajun's nailed, Forge. Storm's going after Rogue. Anyone else down here need a hand? Only one person at the moment, Iceman. Regrettably, though, any possible deliverance from your teammates. Oh, whoops, I said that wrong. Only one person at this moment, Iceman. You. Regrettably, though, any possible deliverance from your teammates will come too late. What? I used to love that psychic knife. That was a cool attack she had. Just fry people. But Psylocke outsmarted herself. For while her psychic knife does indeed disrupt the structure of Iceman's brain, it also triggers an uncontrollable broadband outburst of energy from him that leaves everything in close proximity sheeted in ice, including her. Meanwhile, TK is still too weak to defend myself. My telepathy is allowing me to anticipate Scott's target a split second before he fires. But I can't maintain this pace. My body's tiring too much to keep dodging his optic blasts. Cyclops! All of you! Stop! Rogue, what are you doing? Have you betrayed the cause too? Zark. Wait. This is insane. What am I doing? Ain't altogether sure myself. 'Cept we're siding with our deadliest foes against our nearest and dearest. And that ain't natural. That, Rogue, as with so many things, depends on your point of view. I should have known no power could bind you, X-Men. Your innate strength of character is too strong even when it's for your own good. But I had hoped. Good? Mister, you don't know the meaning of the word. What I did, Cyclops, I did to save you. By making us your puppets? You were warned, X-Men. No, don't. Either stand with the Master or fall before him. Pow, pow, pow. Enough. I will have neither my person nor my home further despoiled. I did not wish you harm, X-Men. But I also cannot afford to allow my further oppression. Can't you see? After all these years, sorry, tongue-tied. Can't you see? After all these years, still do you not understand? When all is said and done, your dream, Magneto, cannot endure because it will forever be tainted by the blood of those you sacrificed along the way. You dare condemn me, Xavier, after what you've done? And poisoned as well by the rage that drives you to take those lives under the pretense that it was somehow necessary. An individual, a team perhaps, perhaps our entire race that has to be slaughtered in order to be saved. Is this what you want? Merciful glory. He's discorporating. Ah! Game's over, bub. Time to call it quits. Go ahead then, Wolverine. Make your day. Play the role you seem born to. That of executioner. I cannot stop you. I'm tempted. But we're heroes even when it hurts. We gotta stand for something. And I draw the line at murder. My process was a failure, Magneto. Effective only so long as the subject never used their mutant power. The structures of mind and body have to be aligned a certain specific way for those powers to operate in harmony, so to speak, with your essential character. That's why you all have such indomitable wills. No matter how deeply you're brainwashed, each use of your power reverts you to your natural default state. You were never deprived of anything by me. The choices you made were the ones would have made regardless. And if there's been betrayal here, hey, by us, look to your own for that. Look to the man who's cast you irrevocably as power was healing you when every use of it made matters worse. What Cortez did was amplify your own power to effect the illusion of recovery. You were no less hurt than before. You simply didn't notice any longer. Eventually, perhaps, even now, you reach a point of no return before your power's ability to sustain the physicality that houses it. You needn't worry about Wolverine, man. I fear you're dying already. You lie. Could be, bub. But then, who's that bugging out in the escape pod? We tried to stop him. That's why I was so late getting here. But your asteroid's too flamin' big. Got to the hatch too late. He is fleeing before the plasma cannon is fired? What plasma cannon? The cannon, chumps. That's going to blast you out of space. And sadly, Lord Magneto, you too must pay the price. But you will live on in the minds of men like me, to inflame and inspire us, to follow our righteous cause, that our people may not fade from Earth. Thus, I must push the process along. Mission Control, emergency. Some outside influence has taken over our control circuits. The cannon is firing. With, as predicted, as feared, devastating results. The beam burns through solid rock as though the asteroid had no more substance than a cloud, and because its internal systems, indeed, in some measure, the physical fabric of the planetoid, are linked with Magneto himself, he is struck as hard, perhaps even as fatally, as his home. A masterful stratagem. In addition to the plasma beam, Cortez attempted to simultaneously ignite the nuclear warheads of the missiles I had arrayed about my asteroid as a defensive measure. I have magnetically disabled the triggers. The weapons are useless. Time to go, folks, fast as we can. I'll help, Jean. Rogue, take the professor. And Magneto as well, Cyclops. You are the stubbornest of men, Charles, not to mention one of the most foolish. I have englobed the asteroid with an energy shield to deflect any further attacks. It takes my total concentration to maintain the internal physical and environmental integrity of this complex. Here I am. Here I will remain. If you won't save yourself, at least think of your followers. There's room in the X-Wing. Come with us, I beg you. No. They have made their free choice, Charles. So have I. My life was shaped by forces and events none of you can possibly understand. You speak to the best in humanity. I have endured the worst. You imagine the reality of the Holocaust, of the Nazi death camps. I grew up in one. Perhaps, as you say, I am tainted by blood and rage and death, but perhaps as well, that blood and rage and death comprise the armor that will sustain me and those who stand by me through the ordeal to come. The past is prologue, old friend, and the future I behold for you is war. We have already chosen our path. Chosen what? A legacy of our children of unending conflict? Are your heart and soul so black? Professor, we gotta go. It's no use talking. I see that now. Y'all may use the same words, but you don't speak the same language. I wonder if you ever did. Leave me be, Rogue. I won't permit this. That decision, Charles, is not yours to make. Farewell, my old friend. Whatever comes, I and mine will not go like lambs to the slaughter, but like tigers. No, Magneto, this isn't the answer. This isn't the way. No! We're aboard, Storm. Hatch is sealed tight. Get us out of here. The ship's escaping the asteroid. At the last, he opened his thoughts to me. He is still the man I remember from younger, happier days, who was my friend, and yet none of that matters anymore, does it? I save you, X-Men, he said, because that is my task in life. Boom! To safeguard my people, Homo sapiens superior, mutant kind from those who would do us harm. And those forces are legion. In that, and I suspect nothing else, Charles, we are much alike. I have survived one Holocaust. I could not tolerate another, nor any who, by accident, by intent, act to bring it about. I bore no animus to you, old friend, or your students, until you chose to oppose me. Then I had no choice but to count you among my enemies. Have no illusions on that score. Perhaps it's best to end this way, Charles. Best for my dream to end in flames and glory here far above earth. For if we were to ever meet again, I would have to show you no mercy. I give you your dream, Charles, but I fear in time your heart will break as you realize it has ever been a fool's hope. Farewell, my friend. Gotta say this for the man. He knows how to make an exit. You did wrong, Moira. We are not gods. Though our powers may make some think differently, we have no right to tamper with another's inner being. But you also are not to blame. As Magneto himself said, the forces that shaped him did their work long before the X-Men were ever born. Now perhaps the time has come to do some shaping of our own, to act on the stage of history. Like Magneto, we have made our choice in our lives. We have taken our stand for what we believe in. We were both haunted men, him by a nightmare, me by a dream. Time will tell which of us was right. His choice was ever fueled by rage, tainted by despair that scars his soul. As ours, I pray, will be sustained by hope. We have it within ourselves, X-Men, as do all people, whether mutants or no, to leave our world better than we found it, to strive for the heights of our potential, to seek out the best in ourselves and others, where Magneto would have automatically assumed the worst. Yes, that is an ideal, perhaps an unattainable one, but success in this is not what is important. What matters is the attempt, and our powers, our roles as heroes, perhaps even the simple fact that we live, gives us the obligation to try. Finn. Next, Omega Red. And that was the end of Magneto. And the end of Chris Claremont's career until he came out of retirement. Quote-unquote retirement from X-Men. Or from comic writing. He did a magnificent send-off to Magneto, the character that he didn't invent, but the character that he pretty much... that his stamp defined. He defined Magneto. Previous to Claremont's X-Men run, Magneto was a pretty typical Marvel villain in many senses. He wanted to conquer the world, blah, blah, blah. He's evil. There wasn't a lot of depth to the character. And Chris Claremont came in and shaped this guy and put all sorts of dimensions into him. And he's become quite arguably, like, I'd have to say top 5 Marvel villains for sure. You know, some people think Magneto's the best, and that's a good argument. And some people, you know, maybe they prefer some other really classic villain characters like Thanos or Doctor Doom, or I'm trying to think of other ones that might be on the same level. Not sure, but those are the big popular ones. I think Magneto might be the most well fleshed out, even though Doctor Doom's my personal favorite. Chris Claremont's version of Magneto is just one of the all-time greats. And I remember reading this story going back now, was it 28 years ago when it came out? And it was sad because I was losing a legend. I was losing Chris Claremont, who had given me comics. He is the one that made me the fan, and I was losing Magneto. And it was a great send-off. I was like, you know what? Magneto's gone. He had a long time. He had a huge run. He's a great villain. And I never wanted to see him come back because of that. I wanted him to have this send-off. And of course, Marvel can't leave anything dead. And I was like, and plus no one else can get him right. And sure enough, he's back, and no one else has got him right since. And those are my thoughts. Let's see what you guys have been talking about in the chat. I have not been paying attention to chat at all since I was reading. Just trying to get through the book. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Crisis on Infinite Earths. People talking about. Melissa says, I miss classic Nick Fury and him smoking cigars. Me too. The Nick Fury that was in this book is this is my favorite depiction. Not particularly specific favorite depiction, but this version is my favorite version overall, this time period and the way they did it. Magneto is not above humans. He's just a mutated human at birth. Let's see. FF2 says, we need more good comics. Tehilam's in the house as G2C you all. Welcome to Helam. We do need more good comics. We definitely do. But I want to remind you guys, keep you encouraged that there are good comics today. It's very easy to be discouraged at the sheer amount of crap that's out there. And I've done a lot of thinking about this over the past couple of years. I mean, I've been following Comicsgate, well, the original Comicsgate, since 2017, and just being horrified at everything that I was seeing. And it's very easy to kind of sit on the sideline and say, like, oh my God, everything is just turned to shit. But over all this time, I've been thinking about it, and I've come to this conclusion of this opinion that I have, that it's not that there aren't good comics. It's just the level of utter dog shit, terrible, gutter trash comics is through the roof. And it drowns out all the good, right? It's kind of like if you go to San Francisco and you see human feces all over the streets. Well, it doesn't matter if the city streets otherwise look nice. It's like, dude, it's just, yeah, these are beautiful homes in San Francisco. Like, San Francisco's a beautiful city otherwise, right? Like, it's a great place, what used to be a great place to visit. But it doesn't matter. It's covered in shit now. And so it stains everything else. But there are comics out today that, you know, when I say today, I mean in 2020, that are every bit as good as comics I read 30 years ago. If anything, I would argue to say that there are more good writers writing top level quality books than 30 years ago. The big difference is 30 years ago, the bad books were like 3-star books. You know, they were just sort of like, they were just average. It's like, oh, whatever. Like there was a level of consistency. You could pick up in almost any DC or any Marvel title, and they had such stringent quality control that you were almost never going to get a completely terrible book. Now, Marvel would do some really bizarro, weird stuff, like from time to time. Like, what was that one that they did about the NFL guy? It was like NFL super pro or something. Like, he was like an NFL, like, they would do some weird promotional nonsense, but you could easily avoid those. You could look and go, yeah, that's retarded, that's dumb. But for the most part, their standby, like their characters, you know, whatever it was with Marvel, you know, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Thor, Hulk, Captain America, X-Men, any of the prime books that Marvel did, or DC, you know, Batman, Robin, Superman, Teen Titans, Legion of Superheroes, Justice League, Green Lantern, whatever, Flash, any of these books, even the worst of those books was still like pretty decent, had decent art, it was decent story, maybe it was a little boring. And you didn't have to worry so much. You didn't have to worry about picking up books like you do today, and you're just like, what the hell am I reading? Where it feels like some 12-year-old got a writing assignment. And I feel weird because Jim Shooter started writing DC Comics when he was, when he was 12, I think? And he was like, when was it, 14? He was really young. He was really young. But this kid had talent. Anyways. I don't know where I was going. Melissa says Cyclops is a smooth ladies man. All right. Cyclops is a smooth criminal, says FF2. He says, I need to collect more X-Men comics. I'm not gonna argue there. If the Chris Claremont run, you can't really go wrong with X-Men up until this point. This comic was the end of X-Men. Now certainly it lived on afterwards, and it was sort of a ghost of itself. Jim Lee, actually, his what did he do? 14 issues, I think. I liked him a lot. Like, I like Jim Lee's sensibilities. He's writing now. Obviously, he probably learned a lot from Chris Claremont, but I like what he did. Uncanny X-Men did pretty well. I really liked John Byrne and Will Spartasio. Did some really cool shit. So it lived on. It was sort of like it was like the inertia kind of carried it for a while. But this is where it ran out of fuel. This is where, it's just, you're just coasting at this point. Chris Claremont's not driving it, and eventually it would just go off the rails, and it never came back, in my opinion. So yeah, by all means, if you go Uncanny X-Men all the way up to, what is it, 281, I think is the issue where they split. Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, well, there's nothing more in the chat. I thought there would be more. So it's time to get on with our main event. And I wasn't sure what to do. So I settled on Invincible. Hopefully you guys, I should probably do an audio check to make sure everything's going good. Because, yeah, you can never tell on these streams. YouTube hasn't yanked me yet. Thursday, they yanked me like 2 minutes before I ended. It's sad. I finished up on my Discord channel. So let's get into, now this book right here is Invincible. You can get it for free on Comixology, the first issue that I'm going to read here tonight. So it's also on Unlimited. But if you want a free comic, or if you like what I'm about to read, I don't know. I've never read Invincible, but I've never heard anyone say Invincible was bad. And I've heard a lot of people praise. And I like this guy. You see here the first name there at the bottom, Kirkman. I really like Robert Kirkman a lot. He's a talented, very talented writer. All right, let's get into our next story. This is the final one for the evening. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Melissa, you don't have to go because there's no Hickman. Don't confuse Kirkman with Hickman. Their names are kind of similar. FF2 says Invincible is a TV series. We get some pretty good casting for the show. I hope they do a good job of it. I like to see stuff. I like to see too that I think it's Netflix is doing it. I like to see more cable channels getting involved with the superhero shows, because the CW stuff is just not my cup of tea. I don't want to keep seeing that sort of stuff. And here we go. You really ruined my afternoon. Well, now that I've got you all to myself, tosses him. Jathoom. Thoom. See a hand coming up from the snow. It's our hero. If I keep this up, I'm going to give myself a heart attack. 4 months ago. If you keep that up, you're going to give yourself a heart attack. Bang, bang. Jesus, Mom. I'm just reading a comic book. I'll be out in a minute. Well, you need to stop reading that comic book and start getting ready. You're going to be late for school. Don't worry, I won't be late. See? What'd I tell you? Ready with 10 minutes to spare. I should have never doubted you, son. Where's Dad at? Did he come home last night? No, he's had a lot of trouble at work lately. I just wish I knew where he was. Can you turn the TV on, please? Sure. Using a dragon-like monster to enslave a portion of Taiwan, new reports reveal the blurred figure seen in this amateur photograph to be none other than Omni-Man, defender of democracy. Eyewitness reports are that the battle has been raging for nearly 10 hours, destroying portions of the town in its wake. Stay tuned to Channel 6 Action News for any further information. Well, now you know where he is. I hope he brings back something nice for me. I've never been to Taiwan. Hey, Mark, wait up. Oh, hey, William, what's up? A few of us are going to hang out at Shenanigans tonight. You want to tag along? No can do, pal. I've got to be at Burger Mart in about 20 minutes. Oh, yeah, forgot about you having that job. Sucks to be you. Thanks, man. I'll see you later. Do. I can relate with that image. Dun, dun, dun. Huh? It's about time. Let's go ahead and start. It doesn't look like he's going to be home anytime soon. I had a pretty interesting day. Whoosh! Sorry I'm late. There was an enchanted flood in Egypt I had to deal with on the way over. Did you take care of that dragon? Yeah, once I found out who was controlling the thing, there wasn't much to it. The hard part was keeping the civilians safe while I figured out who was behind it all. Your publisher called. He wanted to check and see how the next book was coming along. I told him you were on one of your research trips. I guess we'll take the day off this weekend and write a book for them. I'll have to pick up a couple of spare keyboards. I hope the Guardians of the Globe can cover for me. So, how was your day at work? Fine. I think I'm finally getting superpowers. That's nice. Can you pass the potatoes? Okay. Dad says it's a reflex, so if I can fly, it should just happen when I jump off. As long as I have my dad's invulnerability, this shouldn't even hurt if I hit the ground. But if I can't fly yet, then it's possible that I'm not invulnerable yet. Oh, what the heck. Whoa. Too cool. Boy, we really screwed that one up. We? Oh, so it's my fault the cops showed up so quick? It was a diamond heist. We knew there would be cops there. Why do you think we brought you along? You were there to take care of the cops so we could calmly make our getaway. You weren't supposed to run with us, you idiot. Just because bullets bounce off me doesn't mean they feel like back rubs. There were at least 6 cops back there ready to open fire. Besides, they won't catch us. Whatever. Just get us over that fence. Pow! Throom. Crack! Who the hell are you? Are you trying to stop us or rob us? Thoom. Sorry about that. I guess the outfit could be a bit misleading. I'm sure my intentions are clear now. What in God's name are you wearing? And isn't it a bit early to be doing this? You've had your powers for what, a week? 2 weeks, actually. I'm still getting the hang of it. I've been wearing this when I practice flying so people won't recognize me. I spotted these guys and just couldn't let them get away. Well, I can't have you running around looking that ridiculous. Sounds like the police are here to pick up these sleeping beauties, so come on. I'm going to introduce you to a guy that can help you out. Prom dresses by day, nuclear-powered suits of armor by night. With your standard spandex number thrown in every now and then for good measure. I've had this secret workshop here forever. Well, how does it feel? I don't know about this orange and yellow. I mean, it sings, but I don't think it's the tune we're looking for. And what's up with all these weird disc things? They're solar batteries. I designed that costume back when I was under the impression that you and your dad's powers were solar-based. It's a common mistake. Don't worry about it. Crap. Gridlock is tearing up the east side bridge. I've got to go. Use the north. Whoosh. Hatch. Never mind. Sorry about that. You get used to it after a while. You don't have to apologize to me. I've been working with your father for years. I know he has bigger priorities than looking at silly clothes. So, what do you think of the costume? Be honest. I don't know. It just doesn't seem iconic. You know what I mean? All too well. I hear that all the time. Everyone wants iconic costumes, but no one knows what that means. Look, iconic is a little tricky to do. But your dad is, well, your dad, so I'll give it a shot, but I'm going to need you to know that you need to know what your name is going to be. That helps. Have you decided on a name yet? No. Haven't even really thought about it. Well, see if you can come up with a few good ones before you come back here. Then we'll see if we can't whip up something more iconic based on the name. Okay, we're closing in on the end of the period, and I can tell by how many of you are done that you need more time. Go ahead and take them home to finish. Just make sure you don't thank me for my sympathy by not doing the work tonight. Screw that. I've got football practice tonight. But I thought we were going out for pizza. Trust me, babe. Trust me, babe. I'm not in it for the pizza. Can you stay after class, Derek? I need to speak with you. What did I do? So, you think you can say that again? And this time say it to my face. Just leave me alone. Not so brave when I'm right in front of you, are you? Hey, man, why don't you listen to the guy and just leave him alone? What are you trying to prove? What's the matter? You feeling left out or something? Well, I'm sure I can make you feel included. How's this? That. Doom. Ugh. Don't mess with him again, man. What the heck is going on here? Just tell me what happened, Mr. Grayson. He was picking on Steve White, the kid who has the locker next to me. I asked him to leave Steve alone, so he pushed me. Then I pushed him back. I didn't mean to hurt him. That boy has a history of causing trouble. You don't. You're a good kid, Mark. I don't want to see you start down that path. Don't worry about that. My nose is deep in the books. I've got to get into a good college next year. I know how important this stuff is. I just don't like watching kids get picked on. I understand that. And to be quite honest, I condone it. But you should have gotten a teacher or one of the security guards. That boy was almost twice your size. It's not your responsibility to protect the other kids here. You're not invincible, you know. Ding! Meanwhile, at the savings and loan. Nobody moves. Nobody gets hurt. We want your money, not your lives. It's all here. It better be, or we'll be back. Come on, boys. We're out of here. Come on, the cops must be on their way by now. Move! Screech! Steve? Huh? You guys looking for this? Drop it, freak, or we'll blow you away. I wouldn't try that. I'm invincible. Invincible. Oh, that's a cool pick. I wonder who did this. That was pretty fun. Nothing super amazing, but it was only the first issue. Let's go into the chat now and see who's still awake from their bedtime story. You guys are supposed to fall asleep. No, not very many people. Looks like all the chat is simmered down. Let's see. Dun-dun-dun. Melissa says live action Invincible should have Tom Selleck play Omni-Man. That would be a pretty good cast, I think, from reading this book. Tom Selleck's pretty old, though. Like, how old is the dude? Like in the 70s? So, I don't know. Tom Selleck from, like, the 90s? That would be primo, but I don't know about today's Tom Selleck. Let's see. Omni-Man is an evil man. It's sad this universe is Superman turned evil. Well, what's even more sad, Miss Melissa Harris, is that you spoil that. You're not so. I didn't know this. I have never read Invincible. Why are you spoiling stuff in the chat? Oh my goodness, Melissa. And all I did for you, I read X-Men. I gave you my heart. and you burned me. Oh. Christopher Barker says, is that breaking the fourth wall with a guy sitting on a toilet reading a comic? I don't think it's breaking a fourth wall. I believe what the term you're thinking of is it's meta-textual. It is very meta. Telam says his alias named Bernie Sanders. I don't know what that's referred to. Imagine the garbage bag landing in someone's car. I'd imagine the owner's reaction. It'd be pretty funny. Mark Hamill is Cecil Stedman. Melissa's saying bye. She's saying good night. Oh, Melissa, I forgive you, but just try not to spoil stuff. Not everyone's read this. We all want to enjoy it too. But I know you didn't mean any harm. Just think about it in the future. Ryuk says, got intrigued with this comic. Honestly, was debating on picking some up. F2 says J.K. Simmons is Omni-Man. That would be, I could see that working. Honestly, I think there's a lot of ways you could cast Omni-Man. You could cast him as a literal, like, Superman-looking guy. Just try to cast someone as Clark Kent. I don't think it has to be a picture-perfect casting, you know? You don't even need the mustache. I know for the comic book that's the way that it is, but that's just because that's the way the writer and artist just kind of came up with. I think as long as it's close. I think what the important thing is that they're playing off archetypes. And certainly they're playing off the Superman archetype. One thing that I noticed about this book is something that I read in, what was it, that J.J. Abrams Spider-Man book that is never going to get completed now. It's such a joke. Such a joke. They made that huge deal of J.J. Abrams and his son doing that Spider-Man book, and it's just like, just off in limbo, never going to get finished. But I have to, and I was one of the few people that actually, I read the first issue, did a review on it, and I honestly believe it was a really good issue. That book got a lot of flack. Now, there are reasons for people not to like it, I can understand, but as far as quality writing and art and everything put together, I thought it was really good. But I hadn't read Invincible yet, and Invincible came out much before, and I feel like this whole locker room scene, that it plays out in that Spider-Man book. They almost exactly same thing happens. Yeah, so I was like, what? Did you just plagiarize Invincible? I don't know. But I enjoy it. I can see, I like plays on tropes. I like when stories go, hey, you know what? This is a very common trope. We're going to like play with it and maybe turn it on its head. Birthright, if you guys remember when I did the Birthright story, Birthright really does that. Takes common tropes and turns them on their head. So I want to see where this goes. I do know that a lot of people have told me, they're like, Ash, like, this is not a book you can just read one issue. This book was written for the omnibus. And as sad as that is, because I think comic books, I miss the days when comic books were like what we just read. That X-Men issue was like, you could just pick up that issue and you get a story and you get fun. This obviously was really decompressed. But that's the way Robert Kirkman writes. Like, he writes long form. I mean, this is the guy that brought us Walking Dead, 193 issues of a zombie story. So I don't expect, I mean, one of my favorite books I'm reading now, Oblivion Song, he's writing that. It's all written for this big, long drama. And I'm okay with that if I know going in. I don't necessarily want Batman to be that or Superman or anything, but if you're going to make your own thing, hey, do what you want. It's up to you to sell it to me and convince me to read it. But my point is I'm not going to really judge this on like one issue and just be like, oh, like this is just a setup. So I'm looking forward to it. I know the art also improves later. I'm not a big fan of the art in this book so far. It's pretty not good. But I also forgive it because this was an indie book, 2003, so 17 years ago. Not when Kirkman was a huge name doing Walking Dead. He just and they don't always have the ability to get the A-list talent. So while I'll point it out that I didn't like it, I'm not going to criticize. If this was a Marvel book, I'd be like, this is not acceptable. But I do know that what's his nuts? The guy who writes or draws Spider-Man now becomes the artist later. So even though I think we'll get into that when we get to him. I think he's overrated, but he's better than this. Hopefully you guys had a good night. A little quiet in the chat, but I appreciate you guys all being here. Thanks for listening to me talk about what's on my mind and being good listeners. Thanks for contributing your ideas and giving me things to talk about. Thanks for enjoying comic books with me. Thank you guys for participating in my Discord channel. When you do, we have some really good talks and some fun times there. I enjoy seeing all your names in the chat and seeing what what's going on in your lives and what the things you're into and what you're excited about. So, keep coming. I hope to see you around more. Melissa says, I recommend you read Hellboy. That is definitely on my list of things. So I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. And, YouTube has not booted me. So, hey, we get to actually end the stream on my terms. What do you know? I will see you again Tuesday night at 10. And we will continue Invincible. And we'll have to come up with something for the opening comic. Suggestions are always welcome. Hit me up on Twitter. See me on Discord. And if you guys have your own channels or whatever, you guys want to plug on me, I absolutely want to check them out.